G'day YouTube, how you going? If we haven't met before, my name's Sam. Thank you so much for turning on this video. Today's practice is going to focus on a post-stretch routine for you to implement if you are a runner or somebody who likes to pound the pavement quite regularly. I myself have been running quite recently. I would not consider myself a runner. I'm a yoga teacher who enjoys running. It's a very different thing. But I absolutely know what parts of the body need a good stretch out after a long run, so that's what we're going to focus on today. If you do have some blocks, leave them towards the top of the mat. There will be some spaces throughout the practice where you will have a knee on the mat, so if you would like a little extra support, grab yourself a towel, roll it up, or a cushion off the lounge, something to just give you a little extra support. Other than that, we'll get right into it. So we're going to start today's practice in a kneeling position. The yoga pose is called Vadrasana or lightning bolt pose, essentially sitting back on the heels with the knees together. If already you're feeling a lot of tension underneath the knees, you could take your rolled up towel and pop that between your hamstrings and your calf muscles there. So one of the first spaces you'll really crave that stretch after a long run is the knees. There may be that tendency to bend the knees, so that's what we're doing here. We're finding a strong flexion through the knee joint. We're going to close the eyes just for a moment and see if we can just breathe here. Although this practice is more specifically a stretch routine rather than a holistic yoga practice, we still want to find our sense of breathing, that sense of calm flow in and out through the nose. You may be mistaken for often assuming that the entirety of the physical yoga practice is going to be relaxing, but we might hit some target areas today that may be a little less than so. And we'll still try and attack it with a smile on the face. Take one last breath. Gentle exhale. From here, gently set the fingertips either side of your feet, lean back slightly, see if the right knee can simply elevate off the mat, stretching out through the front of the foot and the muscles that run either side of the shin, the tibialis anterior, commonly referred to as the tib ant. Shins absolutely get a pounding from countless kilometers or miles on the pavement, so make sure you give them a little bit of attention. Right knee down, we'll lean back, lift the left now. So don't be shy here. You do have your hands for support. You can lean back a little more if that's comfortable for you, but you want to be in a range that's sustainable, not somewhere where you immediately feel pain. Somewhere where you feel stretch, but you can hang out there for a little bit longer if need be. We'll gently set the left knee down. Fingertips in front of the knees. Lift your bottom off your heels and just tuck your toes under there. So trying to find a nice stretch out through the toes, and it's going to be intense to start with. To begin, have your heels a little closer towards each other. This is going to stretch out through the big toe. If you look back and you notice that the pinky toes aren't tucked under, you can just use your fingers to tuck the toes under there, just so all 10 of those toes get a little bit of a stretch out. If we have practiced together before, I say this all the time, but this is one of my all-time favorite stretches. I find so much relief in this position, but that is not a common reaction I see in a lot of students' faces. It's usually this look of sheer terror when they get into this position. So if that's you, don't stress. Super common. Let your heels move away from each other now. See if the littler toes can start to get a stretch out towards the fourth toe and the pinky toe. Again, if that look of terror is setting in, don't worry, we won't be here forever. But we are here right now, so try and embrace it. And gently bring those heels just back towards parallel. Lean back enough so that your knees rise off the mat. If you can, still keeping your heels off the mat. If If you notice here, my heels are off the mat, my hands are off the mat. I'm simply leaning my weight onto my thighs to allow my calf muscles, my Achilles tendons to start to stretch out. And again, you have your hands here for support if you need to. Now, the more you take the knees over the toes, the heavier essentially your torso will be on your legs, and the deeper you'll feel that stretch. Again, you are in complete control here. Now, the calves, they suffer the most from extensive running. They tighten up and they take a long time to stretch out. So if you are an avid runner, I'm going to give you an option here. It may not be accessible, just know that that's completely fine. If you can, let your heels set on the floor and just wrap your arms around your legs. So maybe the feet are flat here, maybe you've been smashing the pavement too much and the heels are still a few inches off the floor. Doesn't matter. The longer you do this, the more often you do it, the more space you'll find, the more accessible it will become. Just drop your head wherever you are. Keep leaning weight forward. Feeling the knees travel in front of the toes if that's available for you. Full inhale. From here, grounding the palms out in front of you, we'll step the feet back, come towards a downward facing dog. When you arrive, just notice how, without even having to think, your feet will most probably start to pedal out, and that is a natural response. This is probably one of the most common poses or stretches you will find most runners do. That's because it is just mimicking the action of what the legs are doing when they're running. They're bending, they're straightening one at a time. But doing it in this low impact or no impact, far slower and more calm way, you really feel into those target areas. So you feel the foot stretch out as you lift the heel. You feel the back of the leg lengthen as the heel gets a little closer towards the floor. And when you come back towards stillness, keep the right foot where it is. Just let the left foot rest against the back of the right ankle here. See if your right heel can get closer to the floor, and then push with the hands to see if you can send the hips up and back a little bit more. So we're lengthening that right leg a little more, seeing if it can straighten out, seeing if that right heel can get a little closer to the floor. And we'll lift up high onto the right toes and bend the right knee as much as we can. So the right heel is lifting, the right knee is dropping. You want to stop the knees just a couple of inches before they hit the floor and see if you can just pause there. Pushing away from the floor, feeling the shoulders stack above the wrists, and using your exhale to pull your navel in so the muscles of the core are tight. A little bit of stabilization work here, and again a little bit of a stretch out through the ball of the foot. And take a breath in. Be here for the exhale. And we'll slowly send the hips up and back and return to downward facing dog. The left foot will ground. We'll take a breath in. Let it go. And swapping over. Right foot rests to the back of the left ankle. Push with the hands. See if the hips can move up and back a little more. See if that left leg can straighten out a little more. And then rising high onto your left toes, feeling that heel lift, bending into that left knee, stopping the knees just an inch before they hit the earth, finding that tabletop position with both knees hovering, balancing on the ball of your left foot, feeling the core muscles activate, feeling the legs working to try and stabilize you there. Take a full breath. And we'll gently return back to downward facing dog, right foot next to left. We'll take a long breath in when we get there. Breathe in fully. And gently rising your right leg up and back behind you. When you get there, see if that right hip can roll open, stack high on top of the left hip, and bend hard into your right knee. So squeezing your right heel towards the left glute. Again, that left heel is searching for the floor, and that right knee is searching for the sky here. To find more length through your right side body, pop up onto your right fingertips. See if you can look under your right armpit. Really, really open up through that right side body. Take a breath. We'll set the right palm flat, look forwards, see if your right foot can land just wider than your right hand. Set your back knee onto the floor. This is where your towel might come in handy. If you want it, you can pop it underneath your right knee there, or your left knee, I should say. We'll come onto the fingertips, lift the chest up nice and high, and see if you can just wiggle that left knee backwards slightly. So there's more of an angle here on the left thigh. We'll take an inhale. On the exhale, working to send the hips back, seeing if the right leg can straighten out a little and the right toes can lift off the mat. Again, it may be that feeling of immediate terror, immediate pain. Just know your right knee can stay bent. It doesn't have to be straight, whatever works for you right now. But we are going to find those two movements, and we're going to use our breath to get to them. So as we rebend the right knee, we're going to breathe in. As we send the hips back to straighten the leg, we'll breathe out. So that's 2, we'll do 3 more. Inhale, pull forwards, lift the chest higher. Exhale, send the hips back, see if the head can drop. 2 more like that. Inhale, pull forward, see if your pelvis can get a little lower as the chest rises. Exhale, we take it back. Maybe the elbows bend, the chest drops a little more. Last one. Nice work. We'll rebend the right knee here. We're going to see if the chest can get a little lower. I'm going to give you a couple of options. See if you can take your forearms down towards the mat. If you notice the right forearm is still lifting, you could take your block and pop that underneath you. That might come in handy. Or you could simply stay up on the hands if that works. We're going to work to lift up the left knee off the mat if we can and fall off onto the outside edge of that right foot. So that right hip is opening a little more, and that left hip, the front of the left hip more specifically, is really extending and lengthening as you lift that back knee off the floor. You can clasp the hands there if it's comfortable. Working to straighten out that left leg, pull the chest forwards, and keep that right knee moving away from you. And be here if we can for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, maybe start to move back and forwards on the ball of the left foot for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Left knee will lower down. Return to your hands. Shuffle that right foot towards the center of the mat. So we're coming towards a lunge here. Now, if your knees are sensitive, this is where your towel is really going to come in handy underneath your left knee. We're going to rise up. So there's essentially a straight line from the crown of the head, the shoulders, the hips, down towards that left knee. So we don't want to be leaning forwards too much just here. Now from this space, you could either take a block, pop it outside your right hip to rest your hand on and reach the left arm up and over, or you could rest your right hand down onto your right thigh and reach your left arm up and over here. Whatever's most comfortable, whatever's available for you here. Notice working really hard not to twist through the torso, but still keep the chest and shoulders square to the front. The left arm searching for the right hand side of the room. You're still trying to lift the chest. You could take your left hand to the base of your neck and try and point your left elbow up a little higher. Maybe even look up towards that left elbow. Take one last breath. Mindfully come back through center. Take your right hand, rest it against your right thigh. Squeeze your left heel in towards your bum. This is where your towel will come in handy. If it's available for you, reach back to catch hold of your left foot. So you're working here to squeeze and draw your left heel in towards your bottom without falling forwards too much, using your right heel to push back against the earth to lift the chest. If you feel the stability, just take your right hand back to meet your left, maybe even interlacing your fingers, seeing if the chest can rise a little bit higher, feeling a stretch out through the front of the chest here as well. So we want to find a slight element of the tailbone drawing under here. So it'll feel as though the front of the hips are starting to lift, or the frontal hip bones are starting to lift towards your low ribs. Essentially, the front of the body is getting shorter As the back body gets longer, this is going to lengthen through your quadriceps and your hip flexors a little bit more on the left-hand side. Take a breath. Now to mindfully release that left leg, set your right hand back onto your right thigh, lean forwards, gently release that left foot. And then send your bum all the way back towards your left heel and lengthen out through your right leg here. Now, if you have the space, we're going to set the hips onto the floor and take the left heel just wider than your left hip. If that's not comfortable for you, the block is really going to come in handy underneath your hips, so the hips can still remain square and the chest can still remain lifted. So you're feeling, again, that strong flexion through the knee joint. We're going to work our very best to fold forwards over the right thigh. It does not have to be much at all. Use your hands for support because your torso will want to fall off to the right-hand side there. Feel the crown of your head reaching in the direction of your right big toe, and the right big toe reaching in the direction of the crown of your head. Take a breath. And gently start to walk the hands back towards the body. This is the fun part. We're going to keep the legs exactly as they are. We're going to work to move our torso back in space. Notice I lifted the hips there a little to try and tuck that tailbone under. As you walk the hands back, you may be able to search and find your forearms to rest against the earth. That may be enough for you. You can absolutely stay right there. If there is a little bit more, again, trying to tuck that tailbone under, you can work to lie all the way down onto your back. Doing the best to keep that right leg straight, right toes flexing towards the face. As best you can, hips pointing straight up towards the ceiling. If it feels comfortable for you, even reaching the arms up and overhead, catching hold of opposite elbows above your head. You might feel a little more length of the thoracic spine rest against the earth, the shoulder blades rest against the earth. If you're lucky, you may even catch a moment of calm there. Take a breath. Now to rise out of the posture, we want to use the arms for support here. So reach the arms down by the side, press the elbows into the earth, maybe catching hold of your legs with your hands. As you rise, one hand will ground down, we'll lift. Right leg stays where it is. Swing that left leg around. Take the sole of the left foot inside the right thigh. Don't worry, that left leg will have plenty of opportunity to straighten out and lengthen. As we rise, we turn our torso in the direction of the right thigh. We reach the arms up, take an inhale. The exhale, we reach forwards and fold over the direction of the right leg. One of my favorite spaces in this position to find a little bit more is to take your left hand in this case, flip it upside down, catch the outside of your right foot, and then bend into your left elbow to pull yourself down a little bit more. This is going to enhance and deepen the stretch down the left-hand side of your torso, from the posterior deltoid down through your trapezius, your lats, your rhomboids, into your obliques. And crown of the head searching for the big toe searching for the crown of the head. And last full breath. And gently release the right foot if you're holding on. Slowly start to lift your chest. So from here, we're going to parallel our right shin towards the top of the mat and extend our left leg back behind us. Now your leg is really going to enjoy being straight after all that flexion through your left knee. We're going to set up for a pigeon pose. Notice that the angle of the right leg will close a little as you lift the hips. So if your leg looks more like a 45-degree angle, that's completely fine. You're going to use your hands for support here. With the left toes tucked under, lift the left knee. See if you can move that left leg backwards. and then maybe your chest can get a little lower to the floor. Start on the elbows, see what that feels like, and if there's more space, you can start to lower your chest, maybe your head towards the earth. A block underneath the right hip will give you a little more support if it feels as though you are falling off onto your right hip. We'll take 5 full breaths. And just as much as you need to find that sense of stillness, that sense of space. Last breath in. And gently walk the hands back towards the body. Fall off onto your right hip. Swing your left leg around. See if left foot can land outside your right thigh. We'll find a twist here. Lift your torso up nice and high. Left hand behind you. We're going to wrap the right hand around the left thigh. If you're an avid yoga practitioner and you often take the elbow to the outside of the thigh, great, but more specifically today, we want to target the outside of the left glute. So that's why we're going to grip hold of the leg. And you're trying to draw the knee in towards the chest as the chest lifts up towards the ceiling. And then we find that twist looking back over the left shoulder. You still want to feel the left hip grounding onto the earth. You can interlace your fingers here and really pull that leg in towards you. Now, before I started running, but whilst I was practicing yoga, I didn't often feel much at all in this twist. But once I started to take up running, my goodness, this is one of those moments where I have that little look of terror on the face, which is why it's handy it's a twist. I can turn my head away from the camera, you can't see my expression. Maybe a tear's rolling down the face. You'll never know. Take a breath in. And gently bring the torso back towards center. Straighten your right leg out in front of you and do your best to bend up your left knee a little more so the left knee rests on top of the right or somewhere in that vicinity. A block underneath the hips to elevate your hips is going to give you a lot more space in this position. You can lift and lower your bottom using your fingertips. And then do your best to find an element of fold here. This is one of those positions where it is a little easier to catch hold of the foot. Even if you can catch hold of the foot, today I invite you to continue to flex your right toes back towards you because this will give you a flexion through your tib and your tibialis anterior and more of an active lengthening through the Achilles and through the calf muscles as well. But if every fiber of your being needs you to catch hold of that foot, absolutely you can do that as well. Full inhale. Use your fingertips, lift the chest. Left knee will stay where it is this time. See if we can bend up the right knee as well, working to stack knees on top of each other. So in this position, I find if you lift the hips, that will allow your top knee to shuffle and wiggle a little more on top of your lower knee, and then you can set your hips back down onto the mat or onto a block, whatever you had underneath you. Although I have a cool, calm demeanor, there is a fire really starting to build in my outer hips here. So hopefully you are feeling that as well. If there's that space to fold forwards, you can rest your forehead or your chin onto your left knee. You could drop the head down, close your eyes. Full breath in. And slowly we'll rise. Lean back slightly, pull the knees in towards the chest, unravel the legs, and then see if you can simply extend the legs, point the toes up towards the ceiling. And we'll cross one ankle over the next, roll back onto the hands, step the feet back, and we'll come towards downward facing dog. And it will feel like an eternity has passed since we were last in downward facing dog, so pedal out through those feet when you get there. Take one last full breath. This time left leg will rise high. We'll work to roll that left hip open, stack it on top of the right, bending into the left knee, squeezing the left heel in towards the right glute as the right heel searches for the floor. To find more length through the left side body, pop onto your left fingertips, look under your left armpit and see if you can lift that left knee a little higher towards the ceiling. Full inhale. And left hand will flatten out. We'll look forward, work to step the left foot a little wider than the left hand, lowering the back knee onto the floor when we get there. Come onto the fingertips, shuffle your right knee back a fraction. Remember, use your towel if you need to for more support underneath that back right knee. Once we arrive, we'll lift the chest higher, take an in-breath. Exhale, work to send the hips back, straighten through that right leg, flex the toes towards the face. This is the first time we're doing this on the left leg, and again, it has been an eternity since we were here on the right-hand side, so just know your leg does not have to be straight. It can be bent as much as you need it to be bent so that it feels sustainable for you. Remembering we are going to shift through the two using our breath. So inhale, pull forwards, lift the chest. Exhale, take it back, straighten the leg. 3 more times. Inhale, we shift forwards. Exhale, we take it back. Inhale, drawing forwards. Pelvis gets a little lower, chest gets a little higher. Exhale, take it back. Head drops, maybe elbows bent. One last time. From here, re-bending that left knee as you pull the chest forwards, working forearms onto the floor, forearms onto a block, or just stay up on the hands, completely your call. Working to elevate that right knee off the mat as the left knee falls open to the left-hand side. Staying firm through both forearms or both hands, whatever is supporting the earth, you want it to be nice and even on both sides. So really lifting that right knee off the floor and allowing that left knee to open. As the chest draws forwards, we hold here. 10, for 9, 8, 7, 6, for 5, shift back and forwards, 4, for 3, 2, and 1. Right knee drops down, hands walk back towards the body. We slowly shuffle that left knee towards the center. As we rise, we want to find in that straight line, head, shoulders, hips, down towards that right knee. Using support if you need to under your right knee so that it feels comfortable. Using your block, either set the block outside the left hip, rest the left hand onto it, or set your left elbow onto your left thigh. Reach your right arm up and over to lengthen through the right hand side of the body. Doing our best not to twist through shoulders. Maybe setting right hand to the base of the neck, looking up towards your right elbow. And very mindfully, coming back through center. Left hand to rest against the left thigh. Maybe double over your towel here. Give yourself some more support. We'll reach the right arm down. Work to bend up the right knee. See if we can catch hold of the foot. Doing our best to lift our chest rather than leaning forwards. Taking left hand back to meet the right if that's available, interlacing the fingers, letting the elbows move away from one another. As the chest lifts up and back, you'll feel a little length through the pectoral muscles and into the front of the deltoids as well. Breathe in. Remember, as we release, left hand returns to the left thigh, we lean forwards, we gently release that back right leg. And we send the hips all the way back, working to land the hips towards that right heel, straightening through the left leg. Then once you get there, letting the hips set onto the floor, the right foot shift just a little bit wider than the hips. Or maybe you use your block and set the block underneath the hips. We find, as best we can, a long spine, square through hips and shoulders, and an element of fold. Remember, using your left hand for support a little wider out to the left hand side. That will stop you from simply falling off onto the left. And as we rise, working to lean back, using hands for support, an element of the tailbone drawing under as you work your way backwards. Maybe the elbows can find the mat. Adjusting the hips. If that feels comfortable, maybe you lay all the way down onto your back. Trying to eliminate or remove the arch in the low back as best you can. Not entirely possible, but you'll be able to find a little more length through the front of the hip if you can feel that tailbone drawing under. You can clasp the forearms over the top of the head if you did on the previous side. To gently reverse the process, arms down by the side, catch hold of ankle and thigh, lean forwards to lift your chest, left leg stays where it is. We'll take the sole of the right foot inside the left thigh. Remember, the right leg will have plenty of opportunity to straighten in a moment, but we are working that flexion through the knee joint. Torso will rise and turn in the direction of the left thigh. Arms will reach tall. Take a breath. Exhale, we move forwards, see if the chest can continue to travel in the direction of that left leg. If you're searching for something a little deeper, right hand will flip, catch the outside of the left thigh. You'll bend the elbow to pull yourself down, and remember that is targeting the right hand side of the torso from the back of the shoulder down through the back muscles into the obliques. Take one last breath here. And releasing that left foot, we'll lift the chest. Setting up for pigeon pose, left shin parallel with the top edge. Extend your right leg back behind you. Again, that angle of the left leg may close off a bit as you work to square off through those hips. Using the right toes there, tuck them under, find that buoyancy in the back leg, see if you can extend your right knee backwards and work to find a space where you feel comfortable, a space where you feel a deep stretch, but you can also stay there a little longer without the urge to immediately come out of the shape. And so often we see in this position, students will put the knee directly underneath them in the chest. That way the weight is just pressing down on the left shin. It might look a little more like that. You're not really getting the opening in the hip there, you're just finding a flexion through the knee joint. So essentially, whatever leg that is in front of you, in this case the left, you want that left knee to be wider than everything else on the left-hand side of the body. so that when you lean the hips back in space, it feels like the outside of your left hip, closer towards your left glute, is trying to search for the floor. And maybe it gets there. Or maybe you have a block underneath to give you that little extra bit of support. Three more breaths here. Last inhale. You slowly walk the hands back towards the body, falling off onto the left hip, swinging the right leg around, working to set right foot outside that left thigh. As we rise nice and tall, working to find that twist, so right fingertips behind you, left arm will cradle and hold that right leg. You work to squeeze the right leg in towards you as the chest lifts. Then peel your gaze back over your right shoulder. Interlace the fingers if that works for you there. Still working to keep that right hip onto the floor. Last breath. And come back towards center. Left leg extends out in front of us. We work to bend up that right knee a little more in an attempt to stack right knee on top of left. Remember, block will come in handy. If you want, pop it underneath your hips. Lift and lower your hips. Allow yourself to center. And then find that space to fold forwards. Working to flex the left toes towards us without necessarily needing to catch the foot. Take one more breath. And slowly we rise the chest, working to bend up that left knee now, leaning forwards. See if that will allow the right knee to stack a little more on top of the left. Remembering your block for support if you need it underneath your hips. As you lower back down, the hips are grounded, the hips and shoulders are square to the front of the room, and maybe we fold forwards. And remember at the beginning of the practice I mentioned that you can be mistaken or you can be forgiven for mistaking every aspect of the physical practice for being relaxing. And if you are an avid runner, if you do spend a lot of time running, not just running, cycling, anything where the legs are constantly shortening, the knees are flexing. Poses such as this certainly don't feel relaxing. So hopefully my dumb voice has distracted you for a little bit while you sit here. Take one last breath. And as we rise, hands reach back behind you, unravel the legs, bring the knees in towards the chest, and then straighten the legs, point the toes up towards the ceiling. From here, gently set both legs onto the floor nice and straight. Lift and lower your hips. Take one last pose here. Reach your arms up tall. Take a breath in. Exhale, we lean forward. We fold over the thighs. Again, seeing if we can still flex the feet towards us. Crown of head towards the big toes. Big toes towards the crown of the head. And this is where I leave you today, friends. I want you to stay here as long as you can, as long as the legs will allow, as long as your body will allow. Get really heavy, really comfortable. If there's space for you to rest your head onto something, you'll find quite a lot more relief there. Back of the hands to the earth, fingers curling. A complete sense of softening, a complete sense of surrender. The complete opposite of what you feel during a long run. And surrender to the space. Allow yourself to slow down. Allow yourself to be still. As always, from me to you with thanks. Peace.